All right, well, let's take this up now with our guests. Mohamad Elmasry is chair of the journalism program at the Doha Institute for Graduate Studies. He joins me here in the studio. And also with us is Nabil Mikhael, who's professor of political science at George Mason University in Washington. George Washington University, I should say, in Washington. Thank you so much for being with us, both of you. Let me start with you, Mohamad Elmasry. Why is the credibility of this election so in doubt?
Well, as your introduction talked about, you have several candidates who have been systematically eliminated. The only candidate who's been allowed to remain in the race is a token figure. He himself is a Sisi supporter. The day that he declared his intention to run, his profile picture on Facebook was of Abdel Fattah al-Sisi himself. He had been campaigning for al-Sisi. All of the media narrative is in Sisi's favor. It's completely propagandist one way. So those are some reasons. Let's
bring in Nabil Mikhael in Washington. Nabil, would you agree with that? Many people say this is a farcical election that's meant for consolidation of power, that it's not legitimate in the eyes of the international community. Would you agree with that?
The question is not one of legitimacy. The question is one of Egypt's stability. So let us just make an outline. First of all, the election will take place. No one was able to impede it. Second, it will acquire a degree of legitimacy on an international and regional level because you cannot nullify it. Thirdly, it reflects a mood of satisfaction and basically even a conservative attitude on the part of millions of Egyptians because just they do not want to venture into any political unknown at this moment. But there is something very, very important about the other candidate, which I regret that no one talked about him. His father was a very famous student leader back in the 1940s at Cairo's University College of Engineering. He won a seat in the Egyptian parliament from an area in central East Cairo. And then he inaugurated a very important movement in Egyptian politics called Al-Tali'a al-Wafdiyya, or the Wafd Vanguard.
Right. But he's still a supporter of President Sisi, is he not?
Yes, but there is something, I mean, actually, he's a very good friend of Gamal Mubarak, but there is a very important thing, which is that he has a long affiliation with Al-Wafd party, which is the middle-class nationalist party in Egypt. So for his party of ancestors not to back him means that not just, like, say, complacency, no, but an attitude on the part of the liberal parties in Egypt to stay quiet, just be patient. Let Sisi finish another term, restore a degree of stability, and then competition could ensue. So he stands representing an important institutional arrangement in Egyptian politics that could be an important player in few years.
Let's hear from Mohamad Elmasry. What do you respond to that? He says, Nabil says that this is a legitimate election and let Sisi do what he can for Egypt. Give him some more time, basically. That would be perhaps the view of many Egyptians today, no?
Right. Well, I mean, I think the election, I mean, he's right. I mean, the election will be recognized by the international community and will have legitimacy in the same way that 30 years of Mubarak elections had legitimacy or Saddam Hussein elections had legitimacy. Everyone in the international community knows that it's not democratic, that it's a sham. I think the elephant in the room is the degree to which Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is scared, is anxious about something. Why else would
What is that, voter turnout?
Well, that, but he's also scared about the split inside the Egyptian military apparatus. There are a lot of Egyptians who do not support Sisi. It's one reason why he's banned opinion polling, scientific opinion polling in the country. It's another reason why they've been warning Egyptians about problematic, critical media coverage. They have a hotline out now for Egyptians to report journalists that are critical. They're arresting journalists. They're arresting political candidates. This is all an indication of, that he's paranoid, that he's scared, that he's anxious about something.
Nabil Mikhael, President Sisi has emphasized security and stability. He's done so for the past few years. He claims to have brought security and stability in his 4-year presidency, but he's struggled to defeat ISIL in the Sinai Peninsula, for instance. Are Egyptians really happy with the direction the country is taking when it comes to security, for instance?
Yes, I mean, more or less they approve it because they know that the Egyptian army is mightier than any terror group. But the question is, for me, are two things. First of all, how can you organize a competition within the framework of Egyptian politics?
Right.
I look at Egypt now in 2018, similar to what happened in France 60 years ago, when de Gaulle won the election in 1958, inaugurating the Fifth Republic with close to 80% of the vote.
Right.
I'm sure that El-Sisi will exceed 90%.
But this is the most populous country in the Arab world, sir. It's very difficult for people to understand how there could only be one contender, one opponent to President Sisi when we're in the biggest country in the Arab world. What happened to all the other candidates?
This is the important question that I was going to ask now. Let me put it, how to organize a competition in Egyptian politics. So suppose today we hear that Musa got, say, 2 to 3 million votes. As a matter of fact, Al-Ahram said that they expect Musa to get 22 million votes. But El-Sisi won over 20 million votes against Sabahi 4 years ago. The question for me is not 2018. The question for me is 2022. What will happen after the lapse of 4 years? Will Sisi run for a third term?
That is the big question, isn't it?
Some objections.
Right. Well, Mohamad Elmasry, what do you think is going to happen?
I agree with you.
Well, what is going to happen in 4 years? He said that he wouldn't run for after a second term.
Right.
Is that going to change if he wins this election? Are we going to see some constitutional maneuvering going on, as some people would say?
He's been working hard to consolidate power. I think that will continue over the next 4 years. And I think you can expect the Constitution to be amended to allow for a third Sisi term or even a lifetime term.
Let's talk about, we often hear about the security. What about economically? Has he performed well economically in these last 4 years?
Some of the macro level indicators show that the Egyptian economy is slowly reviving as a result of some of these IMF induced reforms. But at the micro level, the average Egyptian is really struggling. Poverty indicators have all gone up. Inflation has increased while earning power has remained stagnant or gone down. Acute poverty continues to plague Egypt, and I think that's something that Sisi is going to have to contend with. And his major economic project, the Suez Canal project, has failed to generate anywhere near the kind of income that he promised. Okay,
Nabil Mikhael in Washington, I'll give you the last word. What would you like to see President Sisi accomplish over the next 4 years? You say give him time. The Egyptians should be patient. What do you think should be his priority?
Very important question. I hope he can foster a political culture of tolerance. I was very disappointed when I read Al-Ahram yesterday, the Egyptian newspaper, and Mustafa Musa was quoted in an interview to the Russian station Sputnik, saying that America is trying to undermine the Middle East. The whole Arab Spring phenomenon is a conspiracy by America to create divisions and mini states and split the Arab world into small states. And the whole thing was masterminded by Condoleezza Rice. This is not an attitude upholding liberal values. So I hope that El-Sisi will work hard to stop all this anti-American, anti-Western, anti-liberal propaganda that flourished in the last few years, and it will anger America. This is why I will expect that the Trump administration will be working very closely with the Egyptian government, incumbent and future, to help them solve a lot of problems, also exercising a degree of pressure on Cairo to change some of its policies, like the detentions, like the prosecution of some political opponents, and not the least, these rumors about an American conspiracy to undermine the Middle East.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing your views with us. Nabil Mikhael in Washington and Mohamad Elmasry here in Doha with us on the NewsGrid. Thank you both. Let's now see how this election is playing out online. Andrew Chappell is on our Egypt desk this week. Give us a snapshot of the discussion online. What are people saying about this election?
Well, following on this first day of voting, there's two kind of dueling hashtags that we've been watching throughout the day, both of which have been trending on Twitter across Egypt. Now, the top hashtag roughly translates to, "We are going to finish the journey." That, of course, encourages people to go out and vote. And in the past few hours,